tell me when we're good to go.
I think we're good to go.
Okay, well, then, I'd like to open the, community water committee agenda or meeting, and, I guess I'll start out by, throwing out on the table what my concerns were, why I thought that we should have this, committee meeting. First of all, just as a starter, I don't know whether any of you have looked on any of the maps that have been coming up on various news or whatever sites, all the fires that are going on here in western US, but especially here in California and Oregon. Pretty scary, pretty scary. So the Tuolumne Stanislaus South River Canyon is not burnt in over 100 years.
Wow.
Over 100 years. A few years ago, I worked to get a, well, our Achilles heel is a 3-mile long wooden flume. And that wooden flume carries all the water for the majority of Tuolumne County, but especially the business districts. In other words, we've got Sonora, Tuolumne City, Jamestown, Twin Heart, and so on. So that's all the biggies, the hospital, everything. So if that flume goes down, we're in deep doo-doo.
Right.
So several years ago, I put together a meeting with some two folks with what do they call themselves? Sierra. I'll think of it in a minute. At any rate, they hand out grants all the time, and I wasn't asking them for anything specific. I just, if they had any ideas, I showed them my big thick binder with all the pictures in it, and I showed them I said, this is our Achilles heel, this right here, this wooden flume. And at any rate, they totally got it, and they went home, and I said, oh, by the way, if you come up with any ideas, and I hope you do, don't call me. I mean, you can, but I gave them a card, a brand new GM at that time, who was Hagelin. So about 3 weeks after the meeting, Hagelin gets a call, and it's one of the people that I had met with, and he said, you think you guys would be interested in an $850,000 grant to clear the brush along the wooden flume? And I think Hagelin almost fell out of his chair, but anyway, that did get done. But that's what I'm trying to get at, that didn't cure the problem at all. So back in 2008 or 9, Gordon Gottschall put together a very in-depth report concerning the flume and the water system. And I don't remember whether it was through Highway 108 fire safe or not. They probably were involved in it. I don't know whether they were the overarching group, but whatever it was, they came up with the fact, which is now what I understand is our backup plan, which is, well, I'll tell you what it is in a minute. At any rate, if the flume goes down or there's terminal damage, almost terminal damage to the main canal, the fix that they came up with, or that Gordon came up with the other folks, was put either a pump or two into the lines and then run a pipeline down the old railroad grade past Twin Heart and back into the ditch. Sounds pretty good, except for one thing. It's gonna cost a couple $1 million to do, all at the last minute. And number two, it's temporary. But the biggest thing is, at that point, whatever amount of time it takes to put it in, by the way, which is not gonna happen overnight, it'll take a couple, 3 months or more. So there's no water in the county for that period of time. But then, once we get the water, it would be 25 gallons per hookup. How many people can live on that? But forget homeowners. What about the hospital? What about all the businesses? How are you gonna run a motel, hotel, or a restaurant or anything else? So that's not feasible. I mean, yeah, it looks good on the books, we've got a plan, but the plan is not worth the powder to blow it to hell as far as I'm concerned. So, right after the rim fire, there was monies available from the federal government, and I don't remember now which organization it was. I don't think it was FEMA, it was some other thing. And it was huge amount of money that was gonna be coming to this area because of the rim fire. And the county was running around, oh, we're gonna get billions of dollars, we're gonna get billions of dollars. Well, they did some wondrous things. They built 2 resiliency centers, which hardly get used, that are in 2 areas that already have been burnt, weren't in the right area as far as I'm concerned. One of them should have been up the hill at Twain Hart for sure, and one out probably at Groveland, but hey, that's just me, what do I know? So, but Tom Sasha, who was the district engineer at that time, spent a fair amount of time, because we were, when I say we, I'm talking about TV, felt that we may be eligible for a big chunk of that money. And what better as a project to eliminate a future problem from a fire than some way to get around that wood flume and the main canal. So he put a fair amount of time in it, and he came up with a plan to run 2 pipes, fair size, down the South Fork Stanislaus River Canyon, go through, there's some high point that would have to be drilled through, and then the water would drop back into the ditch system at Twain Hart, up high. It was a shame that we didn't get the money for that. You know, the reason why we didn't was because PG&E owns the flume. So once again, we're odd man out because we don't own the flume. But the plan was good. I mean, it's viable. 2 pipes, so you have redundancy. It would be installed in such a way that, you know, a tree fall or other than a major landslide wouldn't take it out. Tom did a lot of thinking on it and so on, but unfortunately, there was no money for it in the law. You know, when it came out where we thought, oh boy, then we got the word that, oh, we're not gonna get it. So, why am I saying all this? I'm just giving you the background because the grant that you put before us, you presented to us at a board meeting several months ago.
Yeah, no, we did.
And we got it, right?
No, well, we were just asking the board for authorization to submit the grant.
Okay, but it's been submitted.
It has.
Okay, so this is why I wanted this committee meeting. I'm hoping and praying that we do get that grant. Because that will allow staff and a legitimate consultant to really dive in and figure out what is the best way to solve this problem, because if that flume goes down, I'm telling you, we all may just as well put the key in the door and walk away. This county is done, finished. So the real bottom line of this committee meeting, in my viewpoint, is let's just assume we get the grant. Then what I don't want to do is hinder staff and the consultant in any way, shape, or form of trying to figure out the best solution to our problem of that wooden flume and the main canal. I want you guys to just run wild, come up with the very best idea you can. But I think that it's gonna end up being Tom Seixas' plan. I just do. So, bottom line for this committee, what I was hoping to get out of it, after everybody puts their 2 cents in, is that we have a, and I'm gonna need help on the wording, Melissa, and probably from Don too, and maybe from you, Eric. I want an agenda item, suggested agenda item to the earliest board meeting for that the board will lightly discuss what I just said and then vote to move ahead. As soon as the consultant and staff has come up with a plan, then whatever that plan is, because it's gonna be good. I know you guys will figure out a good one. But like I said, I think it's gonna end up being conversations, but either way, whatever it is, that we make a commitment at that point, that we are moving forward on it right from that day on, because we've been screwing around with this too long. If we have a fire up there, we're done. So now is the time to do it. Matter of fact, 10 years ago, 20 years ago was the time to do it. But it could be brought before the, as a project before the T-Stan Irwin, where I'm getting that re-energized. We're remaking ourselves, and that should be a project that gets put into there. Every place that there's an opportunity for grants or low interest, but grants would be the best. And I think with the fact that there's 44,000 people that will be without water, I think that's a pretty good sales point to get a grant. So I'll shut up and let everybody else chime in, but that's the whole reason for this committee meeting.
I appreciate the fact that you're letting us be very objective about looking at the solutions and not presuming one solution is better than the other before the analysis is done. So I really appreciate that. Yeah.
And you share the very same sentiment that all of us share here, that we've been talking. I mean, I've been here for almost 16 years, you longer, and this is what we've been talking about, and we've applied, as you know, through the county. We've applied for, this is our 3rd hazard mitigation grant that we've applied for this very purpose. And I think this is the one that I've most been involved in, but it seems like we just submitted the RFI responses yesterday on this very grant.
Oh, great.
Through Cal OES, and so it's still moving forward and they're actively engaged. Good. And unfortunately, as fast as we can make it happen is just not fast enough.
Right.
But so yeah, we're all very actively engaged. We've got all of the things that you mentioned. Yes, we have, as part of our emergency response plan, should something happen. But certainly the best way in most situations is to be proactive, prevent the catastrophic impacts from happening in the first place. And that takes a lot of coordination. As you mentioned, PG&E owns the flume. But we also have been really actively, PG&E has been active in the conversation about what we're doing around the flume, the different fuels reduction projects that we've done through all grant funded, like you mentioned, through not only our own SNC grant, Fire Safe Council assisted with that, and also the, I'm spacing on the other.
Oh, the other fuels reduction?
Yeah, there was hazard tree reduction around that area too, yeah, so it was just shy, probably about 700,000 on that. We are looking to reinitiate on, because we have to go back and do basically all those shaded fuel breaks again, because it's been multiple years, and so we're looking at what we're gonna do on that side while we're waiting for these other grant opportunities. We have had quite a bit of studies on the.
We have, yeah, well, and you're aware of.
Like you mentioned, you know, so we've been doing that.
I just don't want it to come out of that consultant and staff exercise and have a good plan. And there it sits on that shelf back there.
Yeah.
I want it to be immediately stamp of approval by the board, and let's move forward. Even if we can't do anything more than just search for grants, that's, I mean, at least then it's at the top of the list.
Yeah.
Well, the great part about, and you can add if I missed something, the great part of this grant is called Advanced Assistance through Hazard Mitigation. So what it is, and I don't know if I did a good job explaining this at the board meeting, is that this is really to develop the best alternative, but with the intention that, yes, once we have something, the best alternative, and we have a project that we want, then we will be kind of next, maybe not next in line, but in line for a hazard mitigation construction grant to do the project. So
Right.
this is, you know, $2 million or so to develop the best alternative, go through it with a fine tooth comb. What is the best way we can do this in the most feasible manner and construction project? And then at part of the end of that grant is actually applying for a hazard mitigation construction project grant.
Right, I had understood that, and I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted us to all get together and talk about this, so that once it gets through that exercise of finding the right way, then we just automatically, it goes to the board discusses it briefly, and boom, gets a stamp of approval, and we start trying to find a way to actually make it happen.
Yeah.
Because, you know, what you just said it yourself, August 1st, we're just getting into the actual fire season, and we've already had a fire season for 2 months.
Yeah.
Wait till September and October, I don't think. I mean, it scares me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, when I listen to you, I think we share your perspective. Like Abby was saying, it sounds to me that correct me if I'm wrong, your goal is really to make the other board members understand the urgency and the importance of this effort and to prioritize it.
Right.
And that the way I think the board prioritizes things is through the strategic plan, through the budgeting process, through resolutions, you know, that may involve a declaration of importance of this project. And so that when we identify grants, we already have that instrument that the board has adopted with a formal statement of how critical this infrastructure is. And those are the kinds of tools I think you guys have. And then our tools are to apply the labor to find those grants. And ideally, we do get this grant. If we are, there will be public outreach and engagement with interested stakeholders. Like, we don't want to open it up and corrupt the process,
Right.
You know, and have everybody come with an idea that honestly the consultant says isn't feasible. But we do want to look clear-eyed at, you know,
That's why
is
I'm
it
saying I
tunnel,
want it done
pipe?
on what you guys come up with, not what, you know, like Tom Seixas. Tom Seixas may end up being it,
It might be.
but may not.
Right.
So I want the best one.
And that's what this grant would do. We, it's approximately $2 million grant. And its whole goal, like Abby said, is to go through that analysis, do the critical environmental review and have the board adopt the preferred alternative, and then prepare the hazard grant mitigation program construction grant application. But all that work will feed into any other grant program that we want to go after. So it's a big investment, but it's like one step closer towards getting to an actual construction project.
Right. And I think that's something that should probably be brought up to that design build group for Sierra Pines. It won't really affect Sierra Pines, so to speak, but it sure would be nice to already have it in the sights as to how it might fit in.
Yeah, actually Marsh Wagner, Heather Marsh, which you folks met, she's a tunneling engineer. So when we were out at Sierra Pines a few weeks ago talking about the geotechnical investigation for that project, I said, I'd like to pick your brain sometime about a tunnel through the canyon there. And she was more than willing to talk. I mean, that's what she loves to talk about. And she's actually hiked up to Lyons and kind of looked at the canyon.
Cool.
So she'd be a great resource. And design build is, I think, a good tool for projects like this as well, where you don't necessarily have the perfect scope. You don't know every unknown out there. That's the whole definition. There's a lot of site unknowns. And so design build could be a really good tool for this as well. I do, though, if it's okay, I just want to take a minute, if you're okay, and not alleviate your concern, because this is the Achilles heel, but I do want you to know that there are a few other things that district staff have in the works or have implemented that would soften the impact of the flume.
Oh, I'm all ears.
Okay,
Like to hear it.
and I don't want to take away the importance of this, but I do want you to know.
Yeah.
So, number one, fuels reduction, as Abby described, the lowest hanging fruit out there, and lots of grant money. So we've been very successful in doing that, and that mitigates fire risk and tree fall, which are big risks. I think fire is the big we're all most concerned about, but
Right.
Other things. So storage, water storage this side of the flume. The board has prioritized that, and the form that would come in is Sierra Pines, that raw water reservoir. I know it's small, but it would buy us up to 2 weeks of time, which 2 weeks isn't a silver bullet, but it might be enough for us to get the initial bypass in that would give you the 25 gallons per cap, and then ramp up to a larger flow as we can bring the community online. Lakewood, the dam, the board decided to keep the access to the little lake there at Lakewood. That helps. Phoenix Lake. So we look at our system in divisions, kind of like CAL FIRE does when they divide up a big. So one division is the upper zone, which is above Phoenix Lake. Then you have the division that's below Phoenix Lake, and then you have the Columbia sort of division. And Columbia could be served by New Melones, which is why we're so keen on getting that USBR contract. The Phoenix division is gonna be able to be served off Phoenix Lake for a month or more. So there's most of your businesses are in that area, the hospital is in there. And then we can also put pumps to get the dead pool out and buy us some even more time. There's a portion of the storage in Phoenix that's below the outlet tower.
Okay.
And so it either needs to be pumped or we need to do in our CIP, or we have another grant out to do a gravity line out so we could get every last drop out of Phoenix Lake. So that's another option there. Our most vulnerable is the area above Phoenix, obviously. Groundwater resources. So we got a grant and improved Millvilla, which produces a pretty good amount of flow. We'd be able to keep a portion of Jamestown in water.
That's
so
that new well, or
Yes.
renewed well.
Renewed well, rehabilitated, and we did filtration there. And then not worth bypassing here is 20 Heart CSD. They have done a great job developing groundwater resources.
Right.
I think they can stand on their own if the flume went out. And Tom Trott, he thought about this and he was like, man, I can't wait for TUD to do its project to mitigate the risk to us. So I'm gonna go ahead and put groundwater, and we have an intertie with Twain Harte, so any excess water they have, they can send our way, which we already have exercised during ditch outage. And so then we come to our actual emergency response planning. We've met with pump and pipe suppliers in the field. We've shown them this. We've toured with PG&E to see how they bypassed a portion of the canal to do the flume to do some maintenance a few years ago, and they put floating pumps out, and then they had generators on the shoreline, and then they laid HDPE line in railroad grade. It was a smaller bypass, but it could be done. So we've met with those folks, and there's pressurized lay flat hose. There's aluminum pipe where there's hot areas that are smoldering, and all this could be brought in like logging trucks. Logging trucks with big forks are perfect for transporting large loads of pipe. Tony's got his military background, and he always brings some good ideas because the military knows how to deploy things quick. So that there's also helicopter resources that we've deployed on other ditch projects that we would need to bring to play here. And then Abby and Dawn have worked on mutual assistance agreements that may or may not help us in this circumstance, but maybe CCWD, that one with them, could bring some of their resources and labor to help backfill where we're struggling. And then lastly, we're just going to continue to search for grants. If this doesn't come through, we're not going to take our foot off the gas pedal to try to get some other, because that national disaster resiliency competition that you referred to with the county,
right?
It was really disappointing to me that this project was not selected.
It's disappointing to a lot of people. And so then now we're in the PG&E negotiations. I can't talk in detail about that in the group, but you guys know all of the details there. And if we do acquire that asset, it's going to make it easier for us to get tremendously easier, I think. Which also, by the way, this is an offshoot of what you're bringing up here. But if we own, the TUD owns that flume, or the PG&E infrastructure, which includes the flume, and it goes up in smoke, we have FEMA, which very well will come to the rescue. While if it's PG&E, they're hands off because it's a privately owned deal. So that's one thing. And the other thing I'd like you guys to keep in the back of your minds is Lions. Now, wasn't when I first got up here, it was after a couple of years, but I had my youngest brother was all into four-wheel drives and all his buddies and all. And I won't get involved in that story, but I remember I got talked into following all those clowns up there to Lions Lake or Reservoir. And I don't remember what time of year it was or anything else, but I know that it was mud flats. There was not a lot of water in there. It was mud flats. So there they all go. They're all out there mudding it. And of course, I didn't get involved in that, although I wasn't involved with TUD at the time. It didn't have anything to do with, muddying up the water, so to speak, although it would be oiling up the water. But that told me that could be enlarged without getting into these great big fights with CSERC and all the rest, just by dredging. Think about it. I mean, I remember watching this one guy, he's wow, like this before we would thrown, all of a sudden, kaboom, and he stopped dead. Well, it was a stump that stopped it.
So are there any trucks in the lake still? The cabs will start showing.
A little dirt bike here and there.
So anyway, I'd like that to kind of stay in the back of your mind, because it's a way of getting more acre feet of water without getting involved with Indian artifacts and all that other stuff.
Do we know what the potential is to do what you're suggesting?
No, we don't. or at least this guy doesn't.
I don't think I do either. I'm pretty sure I'm talking to my other side of my brain. I'm pretty sure I don't, but yeah, that's definitely worth looking at. There is a dead pool in the lake, so we would need to consider if we dredged it, that storage volume would be there, but we would want to deploy pumps, to still get it to
But
the
also
outlet.
it helps on the taste and odor
It
problems
does.
that we have up there.
Yep,
That
absolutely.
would really help. And it's the same thing with Phoenix Lake. You were talking about that dead pool. Well, that serves a good purpose because that's cold water and that keeps the algae and all down. So.
Yep. Absolutely.
What about you, Tony? Got any 2 cents out of you?
Well, I talked to Don about this last time we had a meeting at the county. And, instead of doing like a tunnel or piping kind of thing, I was thinking, what about siphoning water directly out of the main canal as a fire's dome kind of thing, right? With like sprinkler heads and just pour water right down on the footings, on the piers and all that kind of thing.
Oh, I see what you're
To
saying.
protect it during the
To
fire.
protect it during the fire,
Yeah.
keep it warm.
We've talked about that in the past. I know that was something that, I had been talking about. And I think it's a good idea, if it's done properly, and it would probably be something that, TUD would wanna look into. But to get PG&E to do it, I think is, not gonna happen.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But see, if we can close that deal, it's gonna open up a lot of doors for us and make things be much better.
And is a purchase of just the flume something we could consider?
No, we want the water rates.
Yes, yeah, well, yes, we want it all, yeah, but just
Not only
to
that,
cover
they
our
don't-
asses.
Not only that, but PG&E operates those 2 reservoirs to suit their electricity making process and money. When TUD gets it, we'll be doing it for water for the community and so on, and PG&E gets second seat for their electricity. It won't be like, in, what was it, 2014, when everybody in the county,
Yeah, it was
we all,
conservation.
yeah, we had.
And Pinecrest was.
Yeah, it was.
Fuller than ever.
And then at the end of the year, our thanks for having turned the whole county brown was they ran it all down
Those
Philadelphia
spring gap,
and made electricity with it.
Yep.
That was smart.
For them, yeah.
Yeah. Well, did
Yeah,
we,
one more, Eric, you mentioned pumping out of new Maloney's.
Mhm.
Before I came in here, I was reading the PG&E contract. I think it might have to, reread, but I just scanned over it. If the flume was to go down, the water would be going down the stand, right?
Right.
And it was saying, I think we could pick it back up
Oh.
out of New Maloney's to cover our needs kind of thing.
Could
So-
you send me that
Yeah.
section? Cause I would very much like to be aware of that. I think we've talked about that, but I've never run it to ground.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
And then the limiting factor would be how much we can pump out of it.
Yeah. Assuming
But
there's
still,
power.
if it's, that,
Something that
Yeah.
That would
doesn't
be good to
require
have in
USDR.
No, that's huge. And we do have an interconnection between Columbia and Sonora. So water that you can pump out of New Melones would keep Columbia in service and supplement into Sonora, along with the groundwater resources and Phoenix Lake. I think, Sonora is gonna be doing pretty good, but the vulnerability of everybody upstream of Phoenix is harsh.
good.
Yeah.
One thing that, going along with that conversation is, and you may be privy to it, Eric, but, that was another thing that, Tom Station was working on was, I visited that pump station, several times, and I've seen it when it was ready to be in operation, where it had water. I've seen it where it was high and dry, I mean high and dry. And I've seen it, after it was high and dry, after the, first real heavy rains of the next rain season, and it was covered with mud, silt. So he had worked on some sort of way of getting good water to the pumps so that it actually could be usable, because it's actually too far up. It should have been put in lower in the lake.
In the lake, yeah. Yeah, you can't really see that once you've seen it. It's pretty ugly. Yeah, you know, he worked on an infiltration gallery, which would be a rock bed, various gradations of rock and sand. They're notched out of the edge of the river with an intake structure in that. So you would always have water because the river's always gonna have water in it. And so you put that infiltration and then gallery there, and then you get some filtration through the media, and then it goes to the pipe, and then it runs to the pumps and is able to pull out of the river, because it's essentially a river at that point when the lake gets that low. It's no longer the lake.
That's right.
And it's immune to that sediment flow, which you saw that mud flow that came and covered the intake. Yeah. So the infiltration gallery is the best idea we've heard. Other than that, you would need to get approval to put like a cofferdam in, and then impound part of the river on the side, and then put a pump in that. And that is more of a temporary emergency type thing. We would rather have the infiltration gallery.
Right. Well, I only brought it up because it's something that should be just put on the list that, you know, especially with us, I know I saw McClintock's associates on, when was it, last Monday or something, I went and saw them and really kind of nicely reamed them, you know, and said, hey, you guys need to get on these people, this is nuts, you know, 2 years or something we've been working on this, and it's costing, every time we go to a meeting, got lawyers, consultants, staff people, Don Perkins, the whole 9 yards, and there's tons of money going up. And so you have a meeting every month or whatever it is, and that money's just being thrown out the window and they're not getting anything done. So, but where I'm going with this is that if we do finally get those numbskulls to come across and that gets okayed, well then I think we better have something figured out there at Columbia, because otherwise we can't use it. What good is it?
Yeah.
It'd be nice to have a straw in the pool like the Chicken Ranch man is going to, but I think they're spending a few bucks to get it there too.
Man, yeah, they really are.
Anybody else with anything?
Yeah, I'd just like to say I completely concur with everything you said. There's nothing more vital to our water security than avoiding this catastrophe. Absolutely. 100%.
And you know, the thing, I'm sorry, I just have to say this, as usual, I'm always the guy that likes to throw the harpoon out there, but why is not the county involved with us with this? It's it's them that's going to go down the tubes. And they keep talking development. What kind of development can you, if I was somebody that was planning on doing something big in the way of development, I think I might be thinking seriously about whether this would be the area I'd want to do it, if the water availability might be in question after a fire. So.
I will say, Sean Hembry at the county, who works for the CEO's
I saw him the
office.
same day, by the way.
Did you?
Oh, yeah, he and I had
Good.
quite a one-on-one conversation.
He very regularly is in communication with Don and is actively looking for grants that they can pursue and that they can partner with us on, with both fuels management, but hazard mitigation, emergency management. So I know that he's been working on a few things, and we share ideas on grants. He'll send us some things, and we in turn, so he's at least actively engaged, and he has shown a tremendous amount of concern for our projects and helping us out, so.
He is, and he's recently been assigned, why it can't be a board of supervisor, but he's been assigned to take their place at the T-Stand Irwin. So that was the reason why I stopped there, was to open up the conversation and let him know that I wanted to try and include him and you know, but we also, I had to bring up county issues. I mean, I just had to.
Can't help myself.
He hears them a lot. Yeah, he was here during the Jamestown
Yeah, he
joint
was,
meeting too,
yeah.
and we're like, yeah, he's sitting in the back. Yeah, he's a good guy, I know he does well.
Yeah.
Good listener.
And he's got a big background in natural resources and that sort of thing, so.
Yeah.
I think he's gonna be really helpful. I've got the T-Stand working right now. Our next meeting, we're gonna start reimagining ourselves. And it's gonna be, well, one thing is that Lindsay had brought up that she saw that the state board is after is we don't have any climate change in our, I'll call it a charter, that's not the right name for it, but so we're gonna start on that, and then I've got a whole list of things that I wanna bring up that just as suggestions. We'll see what the water group, you know, the main group comes, whether they wanna do any of them or they have a bunch of their own, but I think that will be really powerful. And then the Lindsay's associate, I can't think of her name right now, but she has been tasked with finding grants. So it's not like the party's over. I want to get T-Stand back on its feet and moving forward, and with everybody knowing what we need to do and everybody holding hands and trying to get the job done, I think we'll get there, so.
You know, there's a bond, right, that's related to climate change on
On the ballot.
the ballot we're talking about. And then I got a question for you on that, Ron. I don't want to get too far off. You mentioned IRWM. You know how Sierra Nevada Conservancy is
That's the
designated?
name I was
Yeah,
trying to think
I
of.
thought it was. Yeah, so they've been designated to be a receiver of some of that
Right.
bond funding, and then they disperse it. I wonder if there's a role to be played for IRWM to be designated as one of those entities that can receive bond money and then disperse it out to your community or your area. Now,
It's a great idea. I don't know how it could get done, but it's a great idea. Trouble is that they're looked at as a governmental agency, and I'm not sure
yeah, if you're
what we're looked at as, maybe the redheaded stepchild or something. Yeah, Sierra Nevada Conservancy, man, that's who came up with that money for the
For the shaded fuel breaks,
Yeah.
and we did get some from them and then some through the Fire Safe Council through
Right.
a different organization.
So, anybody else with anything for the good?
Do you want any committee recommendation, review item?
Well, where, are you up for my recommendation of getting an agenda item?
Perfect, absolutely. And just to key off something you said about we as a board could pass resolutions or declarations. I'd be receptive to any drafts that you might have or staff might be able to provide us, because, you know, as we've been talking, there's nothing more critical to our water security than this issue. So
It is your first goal in the strategic plan is water security,
Right.
and reliability. So
Right.
that is established right now in your strategic
Right.
plan.
Exactly.
but whatever we can do to
Right,
facilitate,
just to keep,
just, you know, keep it in the forefront, absolutely.
yeah,
Okay, good. So that's what our agenda, or what I'm requesting, or the committee is requesting, is that it be an agenda item early as possible board meeting, that whatever, well, maybe you and I'll have to work with the wording of it, but what I want to do is make sure that whatever staff and the consultant come up with, for the best way to alleviate the loss of the main canal or the flume is the one that the board will support wholeheartedly and move forward to try and implement,
Okay.
right?
That's what I heard.
Okay. So, if we're all clear on that, adjourn.